I'm Simone Delane from Leading Teams. I'm a facilitator at Leading Teams. And thanks for making today a priority. We're looking forward to workshopping with you around recruitment and induction and the role that culture plays within that. Today, I'm joined by other Leading Teams facilitators. We've got James McMillan from Melbourne. We've got David Arnfield from Adelaide, Damien Hill from Sydney, and Julian Farkas from Adelaide also. And we've also got Anna from Melbourne, who's going to help us with the breakout rooms and bringing everything together today. So great to see you all. Thanks for making it a priority. So we today want to talk to you about recruitment, the importance of culture in recruiting and inducting people into the business. So we know that the competition to do this has never been more fierce in the current market. It's a challenge across all industries, and we're getting feedback from a lot of our clients around it. So these are really interactive workshops that we're going to break into breakout groups with you, and you're going to generate ideas together. So it's very interactive. So to that end, if I can just ask you to make sure that you're free from distractions, make sure that you're unmuted when you're in the breakout groups as well. And that will allow for more fluid conversation. So like I said, it is really interactive. So what I'm going to do is introduce you now into David Arnfield. He's going to take you through our cylinder model. So our cylinder model is what we use, and he'll take you through that, which steps through the importance that culture plays throughout the whole employee life cycle. So what I'll do is I'll just share that. David, I'll bring that up, and then I will hand over to you.
Excellent.
There we are. Is everybody, you got that? Can you see that, Anna?
We've got it.
Great.
All good. Thanks, Simone. Good morning, everyone. It's really looking forward to the next 90 minutes. Before I explain what that cylinder model is, worthwhile just explaining the context or the origin of it. It was developed by one of our founders at Leading Teams, Ray McLean, who's still very active in the business, which is fantastic. Ray developed this model back in the mid-90s. He was working with the St Kilda Footy Club at the time. Ray was sitting in a meeting with new recruits, new drafted players, and their parents. The footy manager was talking to the group, and he made the comment during the meeting that when your sons leave the St Kilda Football Club, they're going to be better people than what they were before they actually came into the footy club. Apologies to any St Kilda supporters in the group with us this morning, but at that time, St Kilda probably were more renowned for their success off the field than they were on the field. In other words, they had a fairly well-renowned or well-known party kind of culture at their footy club. So when the footy manager made that comment to the parents, Ray, it twigged his interest to the point where after the meeting, Ray went up to the footy manager and he said, "Do you really believe that these boys are going to be better off when they leave the footy club than what they were when they got here?" And the footy manager quite flippantly said, "No, not really. That's just what we say. Makes the parents happy." It really made Ray think that there was a real big part missing about how we treat people when we come into organisations. And that was the foundation or the origin, you like, of this, what we call the cylinder model. Basically, the cylinder model describes the life cycle of an employee from entry to exit. It identifies the different elements that influence the journey and the stages each particular team member will go through. What's really important with the cylinder model is what the foundation of it is the culture. The culture of an organisation. We've all heard of the word culture. What is it? Culture to us is around behaviour. It's around what gets rewarded, what gets recognised in your team. Whatever behaviour we talk around, whatever behaviour we walk past is behaviour we accept. What the real behaviour, the real culture of your team is, not necessarily what management might want it to be, what's not written on the walls, it's what people do. What behaviour do we accept? That's the real culture of any team or any organisation. And it underpins all the work that we're going to be talking around this morning. The induction, the recruitment, being able to retain, all will depend very much on the culture of your organisation. What drives cultures in organisations is leadership. Are your leaders in your teams, do they model behaviour that we want to be seen? Are they able to recognise? Are they able to reward that behaviour? Are they able to challenge the behaviour that doesn't align to how we want to be seen as an organisation? Leadership is crucial. If you're going to have a strong culture in your team, in your organisation, you need to have strong leaders who are able to model the behaviour that you want, recognise, reward, and be able to challenge. What is crucial in strong cultures in organisations is then around the recruitment. How do we recruit people into our organisation? Do we use culture as a way of recruiting people? I've been in teams where we recruit the most highly skilled person, not necessarily adding or recruiting the kind of people that we want to come into our culture. Richard Branson is famous for using the line, you recruit people with high character and train them up. Strong cultures recruit people to the culture that they want to have in their organisation. If we're going to recruit the people that come into our organisation, the next crucial part of it is how do we induct them? We're going to be doing some work this morning on induction. Does our induction align to the things that we say when we recruit? We have formal inductions and informal inductions. Research suggests or tells us that it can take 2 working weeks, 10 days, after we recruit a person into our organisation, 2 working weeks for a person to actually lift to the level that's required or that's needed, wanted in our organisation, or to drop to the standard that's accepted in our organisation. That's the work we're going to be doing this morning around induction, the formal induction as against the informal induction. If we have a strong culture, if we have leaders who drive those behaviours, if we recruit the right kind of people to the culture that we want, and we're able to induct people, to align people when they come into our organisations and teams to how we want to be seen, then we will improve our performance. The key to having strong cultures, to having a strong set of values, a trademark, a set of behaviours, is to use those behaviours, to use that trademark to drive performance. Culture drives performance. Strong organisations, strong cultures use their trademark, their values to improve performance. And then ultimately a person is going to leave the organisation. When people leave the organisations, can we look at them and say, have they added to the culture? Are they culture givers or culture takers? A real simple question you can ask yourself when people leave organisations: what would people say about you when you leave? And as important in all of this, what would you say about your organisation when you leave? We're going to be doing some work this morning on really digging into the recruitment, the induction. What's linked very closely with recruitment and induction, obviously, is being able to retain good people. We're all facing those challenges at the moment. If you have a strong culture, if you have strong leaders in your organisation that drive that culture, if you recruit to your culture, if you're able to induct and align what we say when we want people to what they actually do, and we improve performance, then you'll retain people. It's really hard in the current economic climate to offer people exactly what they want, to give them more money. You can't do that, some teams, some organisations. What can you do? You can do things that we can control. What you can control in your teams is to have a strong culture, to have leaders who drive it, to recruit the right people, to induct, to align what we say with what we do, and then to improve performance. If we can do that, then we'll improve performance. So, mate, can you stop sharing that model, please? Sure. Excellent. Thank you. We're going to dive into some work now. Anna's going to put us into some different breakout rooms with the facilitators that were introduced. While we're doing that, I just want you to think around this. I want you to think around a challenge or an issue that you're facing with recruitment at the moment. What's an issue? What's a challenge you have around recruitment? When Anna puts us into the breakout rooms, there'll be some leading teams facilitators that will do an activity around recruitment. So, Anna, if you're ready, there'll be a little button that comes up that says jump into your room. See you soon. Look, before we quickly zip around to the different facilitators and just get a bit of an idea of what each group was, where they were at, I said to my group that whole exercise, that trusted advisor exercise, is a really useful tool. And it underpins a saying that we use, is that no one knows more than all of us. In other words, it doesn't matter how smart you might be, you're not as smart as a collective. It's a really good way of utilising the strengths that are in your team. So hopefully you got a bit out of that. Let's quickly go around the rooms and just, again, 60 seconds from the facilitators in those rooms. What was the main themes that came out of it? Let's go to Hilly. Damien.
First up, the main themes, there's some similarities. Same as last time we got together, like actually finding the staff in the first place. The process itself in terms of the questions were excellent questions and some really solid solutions provided for Rod to consider. Things including, actually looking outside of your recruitment pool, so interstate recruitment, checking comparison to similar jobs being advertised as well. What are they offering compared to what we're offering? How do you actually sell your culture? Because Rod's business is a strong culture. How do you actually sell that culture as a real asset to recruiting people? There's three of them, and I love Tara's at the end, using the willing and able model that we use to actually assess your current staff and what they could be doing more of.
Excellent. Thanks, Hilly. James, let's go to you.
Sani, we had a great group as well. There were three people or three tiles on the screen from the same company that didn't really have a particular recruitment issue, but theirs will come in the induction. But of the recruitment issues that we heard of, it was Robert's issue in Geelong with GNU. He recruits into three different streams: warehousing, hospitality, and grounds management. And he looks for people who are professionals prepared to work with people with disability and manage them in those environments. And the suggested solutions were brilliant. We got around the group twice, and Robert, on asking, took three key questions and suggested ideas out, which was great. So down to his advertising, being more specific across multi-platforms, taking someone who's already doing those two roles as a champion into the interview process, as well as bringing along someone who is a supported employee. So showing candidates who they'll be working with, what it's like, and hearing the stories of what it's all about. So great session. Thank you.
Thanks, James. Julian?
Thanks, David. Nick had an issue surrounding mainly retention around the workforce in support worker services. Throw in that he's in the Northern Territory, which also provides issues in regards to the transient population and the seasonal worker force that they do have issues with in the NT. Group really enjoyed the fact that that we were able to get to a granular, deeper level of the issue during the questioning. and Nick was able to find it really insightful to be able to get those questions from the rest of the group. Some of the solutions were around actually perhaps embracing the issue. So the issue is a lot of people come and start, and because they are either students studying at the moment and they're using it as a bit of a stepping stone, to actually embrace it. And perhaps it means that it might be that people might come and then use that to then exit onto something else. So use that as part of the recruitment, and then also trying to find how, if your culture is strong, to be able to promote that to the wider market so that you are an employer of choice and seen as an employer of choice. Were just some of the things that we got through. Thanks, David.
Thanks, Julian. Simone.
Yeah, so our group, we had a few in the group who work in not-for-profit. So a big challenge for them is around attracting quality candidates that fit the culture whilst not being able to necessarily pay at the level that people can get externally in other roles. So part of the conversation was around, well, what are they advertising around benefits? What does their salary packaging look like? You know, what sort of extra lifestyle days are they offering? So a really big focus on benefits. And a couple of the things that we talked about, Sarah said that really work well for them is about using the talent search in both Seek and LinkedIn to focus and have an initial conversation with candidates before they apply for a role. So getting in front of them, having those conversations and talking about those benefits, and they get a really strong sense of the culture and the organisation that they're going to join, and the community and the connection to the community through that as well. And that leads to really good results with recruiting people. So I thought that was an excellent idea. And then the other one we talked about, which was around developing marketing recruitment campaigns. So people are very visual. And when you're looking at job ads, people want to see a day in the life. What does your culture look like? How are you selling the story about your employer brand? And also for not-for-profit, it's about how are you contributing to that community? So being that real connection piece through those videos and your EVP.
Thanks, Simone. My group, the challenge was around finding young workers and retaining them. And some really, really good suggestions, some really good questions. Some of the solutions we came up with using a buddy system. New person comes into the organisation, matching them up, similar age, likes, that kind of thing, so that they actually have a buddy that they can lean on, they can ask. Having taster programs, getting senior staff into the recruitment process so people can relate to them when they actually come into the workforce. Some career practitioner programs. Certainly getting lots of feedback on the different pathways, and then talking about how we can ask the right kind of questions during interview process, seeing that we can actually link that induction, that recruitment, into long-term pathways where people actually want to stay into the organisation. So again, really useful exercise. The benefit of what we're doing, that's for everyone, is to not jump to solutions too quick, to really get a thorough understanding of the issue or the challenge, and that sharpens our focus. Once we understand what that issue, what that challenge is, the ability to ask really good questions sharpens our focus, not only for the person who might have the challenge, other people in the team then know their issues, know the challenges. So thank you. It's a really good exercise. And I said to my group, that process, that trusted advisor activity, has applications in a whole range of different things. Obviously, our focus today is around recruitment. Simone, I might flick to you around the next bit of the work, which is around induction.
Great, thank you. I should note too, because probably some of you are madly taking notes around these suggestions as well. We are capturing that information and we will send that to you after today's session. So you'll get a snapshot of that info. So if we move to induction now, David talked before about the cylinder model, and within that cylinder model, a really huge focus and a really important focus is around how do we induct people? So how are we onboarding people to retain and engage them. And we want to do that very, very quickly. David talked before about the stats around how quickly, it's only a 2-week process where somebody feels really connected to that organisation. So it's really important that we get it right. So if we reflect on a formal and informal induction, we're going to go into groups soon and discuss that further. But the formal part is around your training program. What does it look like for a new starter? What access are they getting to training? What are the systems? Who do they need to meet? How do they need to learn their role? And how do they need to learn the organisation? So we call that the formal part of the induction. And that's in the mechanics space. And then when we refer to the informal part, this is around the culture of the organisation. So what is it that people are seeing when they join an organisation? What are they noticing? What are they hearing? What are they overhearing from chats with colleagues in the lunchroom? How are they talking about the culture of the organisation? Are the values being lived? Are they just words on a wall, or are people living them? Are they talking and breathing them? Are people rewarding and recognising people for living the values? So that really comes into that culture piece. And I want to share with you a couple of experiences I've had in my own career. And I've got 2 examples. So one example was I joined an organisation, and when I joined my first day, I was so impressed. All of their values were all over the walls. They were on our screensavers, on our mouse pads. That was really impressive, and it looked amazing. And I thought, wow, this looks very, very cool. And it was really good from a sort of marketing point of view. But then I noticed very early in my first or second week, I went to a leadership team meeting. Sorry, I should have said one of our values was united. So one of our 4 values was united. And I went to a leadership meeting, and I noticed within that meeting, there was conflict between the leaders in the business. So it was very obvious that they weren't united. There was bickering, there was conflict. They didn't support each other's ideas. And I thought to myself at the time, that's definitely not lining up with the words on the wall there, which was united. So that became very apparent to me very quickly on joining the organisation. So that's an example of what we're talking about when we say informal induction. What are people seeing, feeling and hearing from the team? On the flip side, years later, I joined another organisation, and they too had their values on the wall, and they looked amazing. But I noticed in my first week, I attended a monthly team meeting. And in this organisation, they actually have this little bonsai plant that they call Jerry. And it's a long story, which I won't go into now. But what it looks like is somebody comes up, an employee from within the team, and they come up and they hand it to another employee within the business for living the values, and they share an example of how they've lived the values in the last month. And it's become this really cute custodian, if you like. It sits on the desk. People feel really proud of it when you receive it. So those awards transformed into monthly, quarterly and annual, and it became the most prestigious award within the business. So that was a really good way of how to infiltrate the values into the business, and how do we live and breathe them, and how do we celebrate and reward and recognise our people around it. So 2 different stories there about my own experience with inductions around culture. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put you into groups again, the same groups, and we're going to brainstorm ideas, and we're going to share ideas about what does your formal and informal induction look like in your organisation. So you're going to learn from each other. Then you're going to brainstorm with each other and share those top ideas that haven't already been mentioned. So then we're going to come back and share with the wider group so everybody gets to enjoy the feedback from the other groups. So Anna, we're good to go? Thank you. Everybody's back in? Excellent. Okay, thanks everyone. What we're going to do now is similar to before. We're going to share from each group, the facilitator will lead it, and talk us through what were the highlights that came out as far as the formal and informal induction looks like in your organisations. Julian, do you want to kick us off?
I can, Simone, just unmute myself before I get told to. We had lots of ways that formal inductions are done. It was highlighted that there was the vast majority of them were done online, and that there was one team that actually then did them face to face, and it'd be interesting to see what the result of that was. The informal induction, as we spoke about, the formal induction, whose responsibility that is. That's obviously HR's in most organisations, but then whose responsible for that informal induction, and then how do you put structure and around that? And the fact is that it's pretty informal, and that's the beauty of it, that there isn't a lot, and it's just what they see. It's the natural organic interactions that they have with each other. And then the other thing was just how do you get data on that? How do you judge how good the informal induction is? Was the concern, or not the concerns, but was the conversations that we had in our group.
Good. Thanks, Jules. James, how about your group?
On mute. Thanks very much, Simone. Very good conversation. Yes, many start prior to day one. So there's quite a few that are emailing, sending out their induction packs and so forth before day one. Yes, there's a fair bit that goes on online, but many others. So, for example, Abigail called out that, the new inductees train together, sit together, they have Friday morning teas. There's this process of induction where they're treated as a cohort. Heather called out that, they meet on day one, there's pre-onboard materials, the system's all working, there's a buddy mentor program. They work with the inductees through their probation to check in and ensure that everyone's getting a good outcome. Yeah, so OC in Adelaide tailor their induction, so they're integrated with their immediate teams is a real strength. And maybe the challenge they've got is actually ensuring those individual teams connect back to corporate values and corporate purpose. Overall, everyone's the other comments they made were that there's nothing pre-pandemic that they'd want to see come back. In other words, nothing's missing from what used to go on pre-pandemic. And in fact, things are better, and there's more induction and retention effort applied in this current 2023 environment. That's it from me.
Damien, how about your group?
A lot of similar themes. The buddy theme was common amongst our group. Just two things. One, informal. Tara made the comment of really investing in time for the induction process, like bringing it out about 5-week period, I think we spoke about. So it's making it a priority. It's also giving time to build relationships over that time rather than it's just sit down, get it out. It's a invested time from a formal viewpoint. The other one was using the intranet. I like this at the end, asking questions, mixture of fun questions, that sort of stuff, and the sharing of photos to really get to know the person inside, outside the work quickly. And one of the other themes is the challenges of remote organisations, how you informally and formally induct people remotely. So, yeah.
Damien. David.
Thanks, Simone. Unfortunately, we ran out of time. Had some really good discussion. The formal induction, I think, what most people have said, people and culture manager, talking about their purpose, trademarks, those kinds of things. Some did it online, the formal induction. Team leaders spoke standard of work, etc. We did have some really good discussion around sometimes there can be an assumption. People might be working in a particular organisation. They might shift roles, for example. There's an assumption there that people know, and often they don't. So fairly standard in terms of the formal induction. What got really interesting with our group, and we did run out of time, around the informal inductions. One of the guys, or a couple of the guys, had what they call Team Wins awards. So it's a weekly, monthly, yearly awards that match those people who are living their values the most. And the discussion was, how serious that voting is. We have a similar one at Leading Teams where we vote, our colleagues vote on each other as who's living the behaviours the best, and it has a massive impact on the team. The other one that we talked around, taking photos, asking questions, bio, and that led then to the importance of building relationships with each other. Finding out about people as much as we can. It's a really good way, common denominator, what are similarities that people have, where they can actually start building relationships with each other, which has a massive effect on our ability to build trust, build respect. So again, really good discussion around that. Simone, back to you.
Great, thank you. Some really great insights from all of you. Our group talked about, which many of you have covered around, the mechanics part, the formal induction, and we talked about, they're equally as important, around the mechanics and the dynamics as part of that induction. Things like meeting with department heads, all of your online training and your policies and compliance, meeting the leadership training team, systems training, and all of those things. And some really good things that came out for informal was around welcome lunches. The buddy program was pretty strong as well. Shout outs, so shout outs between staff, similar to what you were talking about, David, around values. Also sending a welcome email. So prior to people joining, actually sending them a welcome email or a welcome text from colleagues goes a really long way and makes people feel really special before they join. Sending welcome baskets as well the weekend prior to people joining. Budget's obviously a factor within that, but it can be quite something small but really effective. And doing first week check-ins. So the end of the first week, checking in, how are you? How are you fitting in? Are there any training needs? How can we support you as a business? And then doing that again at the end of month one as well. And through that, you can also talk about the values. Let's do a refresher on our values. So lots of really good themes that came out through our group. So thank you everybody for your feedback. So that brings us to the end of the session today. And I wanted to thank you all for sharing, and also to remind you that we will be capturing the key themes that have come out, and we'll send that to you. But before we sort of finish up today, I just wanted to reinforce the importance of, today we've talked about recruiting. How do we recruit and attract people through culture? But also, how do we induct them, and understanding the role that the informal and the formal part of the induction has on the employee and how they feel connected to the organisation. Are we likely to retain them? Because if we get that right, we are likely to retain them. They're likely to feel engaged and connected with the organisation. So it's a really critical part of that employee life cycle. So have a think about what idea and strategy you learned today, and then what are your key takeaways? So what are you going to take back to your own organisation? Before we finish up today, what I'd like you to do is, if you can put a comment in the chat about a word for today's session. So just one word, put that into the chat. And again, from all of us at Leading Teams, thank you so much for attending today. We've really enjoyed the session.